For those of you wanting resources in a different language from agclassroom.org, I draw your attention to this link up here called Translations. Oftentimes we're asked by educators if we have resources in Spanish or sometimes other languages, but most often Spanish. And if you use Google Translate, you can translate any text that you can find online into a different language. So let me demonstrate this for you. And primarily, they don't necessarily want to read the page in Spanish, but they want to find our resources in Spanish. So it's October, it's the featured resources. We'll take a look here at the first lesson, Seed Match. So when you're in the lesson here, Seed Match, if you wanted to look at it or print it out in Spanish, you would click on Translations and it would open up this Google Translate box. In here you can type any kind of text. If say you had English text and you wanted it like a paragraph or two and you wanted it translated, you could do that. You can put a website address, which is what we're going to do, and you can translate a document. You can actually upload a PDF here or a Word file. Those are the only two I've ever tried. And those will be translated to a different language. In this case, we're talking about Spanish. So going back to the lessons here, Seed Match, I can grab a hold of the URL, the domain name here, the lesson URL, copy, and going back to Google Translate, again, you can get there by clicking on Translations, putting it in here. I say I'm going from English to Spanish, translate, and by some miracle, there we go. There we have Seed Match all translated into Spanish. And things aren't formatted beautifully because there's more words on a page. But I understand that this has gotten to be a very good tool, and it is very good at translating the content, albeit probably not perfect, but definitely something that students and teachers can really understand. So there it is in English, or sorry, in Spanish. And the resources are actually what I want to talk a little bit about. There are essential files with each one of these lessons oftentimes. If the resource has a lot of graphics, that doesn't get translated. All Google Translate does is translate text. So that means if you need a worksheet that has images, you'll have to grab the text and basically paste it over the top of the English. Let me show you what I'm talking about right here. So this first one, and it broke it into two, but it's the same. These are words that are on the page, and you're like, well, that's hardly anything. And in fact, the instructions are down here below. If you look at that page in English, it's called Where Do They Grow? And here's an example of why. These are the very few words, and it's mostly graphics. So a teacher could actually paste the words underneath here and use the pictures, and quite honestly, they might want to have that as English language learners if that's helpful. So that's how you would use Google Translate with PDFs that have a lot of images. You just need to know that part's not going to get translated. Conversely, if you have a lesson plan or an activity sheet, a PDF that has a lot of text, it does a really good job translating that, and I'll show you that in just a moment. But let's go back here to our lesson that was translated. In addition to the PDFs opening in that language or giving you what the words are from that PDF, all of the links are as well. So if there are resources within that lesson that are linked for a Spanish speaker, you could go down and you can say, okay, I want to click on this particular. It continues to remember that you are in Spanish. Even if you leave this website, it knows that you are viewing it in Spanish. So that's kind of a cool thing that you can do with Google Translate. It will also, when you come up here to click print, it will print the lesson plan in Spanish because that's the language you were using on this page. Click on it here, it'll look a little funky because it's not really being sent to the printer yet. I can make it do that. Boop. And here we go, it is in Spanish. So that's one way that you can get the resources. Again, the PDFs, if there's a lot of images, it doesn't work as well, and a teacher may have to manipulate those in some way. Okay, let's take a look at a different lesson then. For example, on the home page, another lesson featured is Apple Genetics. And if you open that up, you want to translate this one. Grab the domain name, copy, and we'll go out here to Google Translate. Again, you can just click on the link on the top of the page, Control V, paste, and then say translate. Now this should give us Apple Genetics in Spanish. There it is, with all of the various links and so forth. Now notice that there are more required or essential files with this one. So this one right here is called Apple Genetics. I remember because I looked at the English. This particular worksheet is mostly text. It has a table at the top, but there's a lot of text. So a teacher could actually grab this and use it and put it into the lesson with that particular file, which in English looks like this. You would just be putting the text into the right place, in this case down here. And so that's how it's a little bit cumbersome or a little bit clunky in terms of the imagery, but at least you have the translation of the text. And in fact, it might be even more useful than rather than clicking on it and trying to figure out where they fit. You could actually have two windows open side by side. And when you get to that window for translation, instead of putting all of the content in here like this, you could just paste the English text. Let's open this back up, Apple Genetics, and grab a hold of this. And you could just actually grab the text that you wanted and you can put it inside and say, and of course that's got some funky formatting because it's a PDF. Take that out. And now it's translating as we go what it is in Spanish. So that could be then lifted and used. So that's a little bit about how to use Google Translate. I hope that helps if you're working with, in this case, Spanish speakers or any other kind of English or language that you need to translate any resources, whether they're on the national web page or on any other website that you run into. Simply remember to use Google Translate, which is translate.google.com.